Well, blessings, everybody. Not many churches get to have Daniel Nahmod and Josh Groban for music on a Sunday morning. That's impressive.
We're special.
Yeah. Well, it's delightful for me to be here. As always, it was a beautiful drive over, and I don't know, my lesson was changing as I came. I don't know exactly how this is all going to turn out, but we'll see. But I did want to give you an update on the flamingos. Those of you who go through Jerome every once in a while, the flamingos, they are, what's the word? They're covered with poppies, right? I think they're poppies. I figured it was for Memorial Day, but they have flowers all over them. So, and by the way, I think it is next Sunday that Daniel Nahmod is doing a concert over at Unity of Prescott in the afternoon. If you have any, for any Daniel Nahmod fans, not sure if I got the date right, but anyway, last time I was here, I spoke about abundant living. We talked about abundant living practices, principles last time, and we said that we were going to put off abundant living practices till the next time, and here we are. This is next time. It's a subject that I really enjoy talking about because the notion of abundance and prosperity is something that it's an aspect of New Thought that really has shown up for Pam and I, and so it's really made a difference in our lives. And I really believe it can make a difference in anybody's life if these principles and practices are something that you find your way to embrace. One of the challenges we face in life on this planet is that of getting what we want and need to live the life that we want to live. Sometimes there's a scarcity of what we want and need, and we find ourselves living in a sense of lack. I expect it happens to all of us at some point in life. But I do believe that these principles that we're talking about are something that can really expand our consciousness of abundance and really shift our awareness and our experience in a way that is a blessing. Jesus, our master teacher, said that he came that we might have life and have it abundantly. And I believe that the truth is that we can have an abundant experience, but we need to understand the principles by which the universe operates and the practices that can put those into expression. So first, let's talk a little bit about what is abundance. Well, from a material point of view, abundance is often thought of as stuff and money, and lots of it. And that's understandable as far as it goes, but the truth is that abundance is something that is far more, far greater. And when Jesus said that he came that we might have life and have it more abundantly, it's clear that Jesus wasn't talking about more stuff and money, or else we would have probably seen more about him on Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous. So what he did have was all that he wanted and needed because he had the consciousness that he had access to it. And that consciousness of his gave him access to it. Abundance really is a state of mind. It is a state of consciousness that is free from lack, a state of consciousness that is steeped in the awareness that God is our source, infinite and unlimited. And we can have access to all that we want and need. It's an awareness of the universal flow. And I seem like the flow, the universal flow is part of our daily word message here today. And flow is a part of really a spiritually abundant life. And that being said, we live in a physical world, and we do have wants and needs that on this material plane of life, and meeting those is a part of a joyfully abundant life. It helps me when I approach this to think about the fact that ancient seers and modern physicists have pointed out that this apparently solid world that we live in is perhaps not quite as solid as we might think. In the book, The Tao of Physics, it explains that physicists have looked ever deeper into the material world, and as they get deeper and deeper, they have come to realize that the universe is made up of energy and potential, that it is really more like a thought than a thing. And what seems like a very solid form, like my hand, is really a wave formation in a field of energy. Now, Charles Fillmore took this concept and he believed that there was this field of energy was what he referred to as spiritual substance. And he felt that it could be influenced by our mind, by thinking. And metaphysically, when we work on that level of thought and energy, we are working at a very powerful level. Well, sometimes I cringe when speakers do this kind of thing, but I'm going to do it anyway. Would anybody like to share what they think of as when they think of abundance, what it means for you? And it's okay if it means a new car or a new apartment or whatever. I mean, I know a fellow who once told me that his prosperity, his abundance was his grandchildren. That's where his total wealth existed. But anybody ever thought about how prosperity or abundance shows up in your life, or how it might?
Satisfied with your life.
I'm sorry?
Being satisfied.
Being satisfied? Great. Yes.
Being in the flow.
Having that sense that you're in the flow. Anybody else?
Knowing that all is well and that all is taken care of.
Very good.
Coming from your heart, not making judgments. And you create love coming back to you.
Coming from your heart and not making judgments. You guys are very tuned in here, I think, today. I mean, sometimes I think about abundance as being things like health and well-being and loving and meaningful relationships and the capacity to freely give and receive. I mean, there's lots of ways we could see abundance showing up, but it really is a state of mind. It's a state of consciousness, and I think you've really identified it quite well. I mean, I think it's a state of contentment with what is, and confidence, faith, that what we need is showing up for us when we need it, that spirit is the source of our good, and that source is ever supplying what it is that we want and need, whatever is really ours. And I think I might throw in also the idea of divine ideas. This is one of the things I was thinking about as I was driving over here today. Charles Fillmore spoke quite a bit about divine ideas. Our thoughts are filled with a lot of retread stuff that doesn't really mean very much. I mean, probably 98% of what we're thinking is stuff that we've just sort of, we've kind of stuck in there, and it's just recycling. But there are also divine ideas that appear if we are open to them. And a divine idea is we could think of it maybe as an aha or an inspiration or some guidance or something that comes from a different level than just our old recycled thoughts. It comes from spirit. And it is something that is, when we come to rely on divine ideas, it can really make a difference in terms of the confidence with which we approach our life. Well, as we begin this conversation, I think it's good for us to be reminded that the universe is not a slipshod operation that operates according to vague and unreliable patterns, but there are spiritual laws that govern outcomes in this life. And as we gain knowledge of these laws, we live in accordance with them, then we find that the benefits are many. But if we remain ignorant of these principles and laws and how they work in our lives, then we could find ourselves standing knee deep in a river of fresh water and then feeling like we're dying of thirst, because that which we need is ever available to us in this universe of spiritual substance, but we need to know a little bit about how to access it. Now, I have a little story for you. I don't know how this really fits in, but I couldn't figure out where else to put it, so it goes like this. Once there was a boy whose parents named him Odd. Other children used to tease him about his name, but he stuck out his chest and refused to be bothered. As he grew up, people continued to make fun of his moniker, even after he became a successful attorney. Finally, as an old man, he wrote out his last wishes, quote, "I've been the butt of jokes all my life. I'll not have people making fun of me after I'm gone." He instructed that his tombstone not bear his name. After his death, people noticed a large blank stone and they said, "That's odd." Very good. Very good. Well, we're going to do a quick review of principles here, and you'll find them on this piece of paper that we've handed out, and hopefully most of you anyway got them. I didn't cut them very well, but do we have any left over, Jeanette? Would you like one? So I put the principles on one side and the practices on the other. We touched upon the principles last week, but I'm going to review them briefly. Number one was, God is my source and my consciousness of that truth is my supply. Now, this is a wonderful affirmation and it's a wonderful foundational truth. We may operate at times under the impression that the source of our good is a certain job or a relationship or an investment or some other thing of this world. But the truth is that God is our source, and these other outlets are only channels through which that good may flow. God is my source. And my awareness of that, my belief in that, is really the avenue of my supply. Number two, life happens through us, not to us. There may be times when we feel victimized or maybe even blessed by events in our lives that seem to have nothing to do with us. But the truth is that we are creative beings, and that to a very remarkable extent, we are influencing and attracting events and circumstances into our lives, even if we're not fully aware of it, with our thoughts and our beliefs and our attitudes and our feelings. Number three was the law of attraction. We are not only radiating energy at a certain frequency, but we are also attracting energy at that same frequency. So things tend to show up in our lives. They tend to be attracted to us really at the same level, the same vibration that we're spending our time. Number four, seek first the kingdom and all else will be added. These are the words of Jesus, of course, the master teacher, and he set our priorities. His primary message was about the kingdom of heaven and living in the kingdom. And that the kingdom is something that is here and now. It's not something that we aspire to after we die, but it is a very real here and now reality. And as we focus upon living in the kingdom to the best of our ability, then really all else is added. But it means that we place a priority on that spiritual dimension. And number five was, give and you shall receive. Here again, we have the words of the master teacher. Giving is the practice of releasing. And I guess release, was it release that was our word for today?
Yes.
It flipped its page without me. In any case, joyful giving springs from an awareness of universal supply. And it's a powerful way to open up a channel of unlimited good flowing into our lives. We are creatures that really thrive in circulation. and in the flow. And it's not just a physical thing, but it's a spirit, but spiritually, circulation makes all the difference for us. Common sense says that if we give something, that we have less. But Jesus was dealing in uncommon sense, which said that as we give, so shall we receive. Now, as far as the practices are concerned, that's on the other side of your page. But actually, before we go to the practices, let's take a moment to look at that affirmation that's down at the bottom of Abundance Principles. It goes like this: God is my unlimited source of good. I live an abundant life. God is my unlimited source of good. I live an abundant life. I invite you to join with me in affirming this together. God is my unlimited source of good. I live an abundant life. Again, God is my unlimited source of good. I live an abundant life. Once more for good measure. God is my unlimited source of good. I live an abundant life. And so it is. So on the practices side, number one was practice gratitude. Gratitude is a powerful way to shift consciousness. I have spoken about gratitude here before. It's a powerful spiritual practice. It has been for me. And it's a way to really shift our consciousness quickly into a higher level of vibration. And it's a way to attract and create greater good in our lives. You know, in the Psalms, it says, enter into his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Now, this is sort of old-fashioned Old Testament language, but basically what they're saying symbolically here is that gratitude and praise are ways to enter into a closer proximity, a closer experience of God's presence and the blessing that comes from coming through that gate. I think sometimes in that Old Testament way of thinking about things, the idea was, well, God needs to hear us being grateful. God needs to hear our praise, but of course, God doesn't need our praise and thanksgiving, but we do, because it is a powerful way to shift our life experience. Now, also, when I was driving over here, I created number 1.5, which was good stewardship. It seems to me that that's probably something that should have been added to my list as I was putting this together, because what we do with the abundance that we receive does matter. And as we are good stewards, then, I mean, sure, I'm not against going to Las Vegas and seeing what you can accomplish there, but it's really, you know, a gambler is really more about harvesting, whereas the farmer is more about planting and then reaping the harvest. And that doesn't rely on lady luck. And so I'm in the corner of the farmer as opposed to the gambler, but it does seem to me that using the good that shows up in our lives in a constructive way, in a enlightened way, it really does make a difference. Number 2, give, start the flow. Giving is a powerful way to acknowledge our source. And it's a way of taking this concept of the abundant universe and putting it into action in a way that turns it from a concept into an experience, a manifestation of our faith. One way to think about it is that giving creates a vacuum. We're told that nature abhors a vacuum and rushes to fill it. And as we stay spiritually focused, it's the universe that's filling that vacuum with something, with a greater good. The Daily Word had me thinking about my closet, though, and the clothes I have that no longer fit. In Luke 6, it points out that giving and receiving are really part of the same system. Give, and it shall be given unto you. Good measure, pressed down, shaken together, running over shall be given unto you. For with the same measure that you use, it will be measured back to you. Giving and receiving are a part of the same flow. And if we find ourselves in a static place where things don't seem to be happening, where we don't seem to really be in the flow, the way to start the flow is to give. Now, giving can take many forms, and time and talent are, of course, important. And I imagine many of you have found ways to volunteer your time and talent in ways that are constructive. And that's a very valuable way to give. And so is financial giving. And when we talk about financial giving, I must say that Unity endorses tithing as a meaningful discipline in the process of giving. Tithing has been, frankly, an important practice in my life. And down through the centuries, it's something that is, you see in the Bible and elsewhere. It's a way of acknowledging our source. Giving 10% and keeping 90% of what comes our way is a way of acknowledging that indeed, Spirit is the source of all good in our lives. So it's something that you might consider. Gratefully accepting 90% of what comes to us and giving 10% back. Now, the way that's typically interpreted is to give to where we are spiritually fed. Now, I must say that Pam and I have kind of expanded that concept so that it's not only where we are spiritually fed, but it's also, we find ourselves including people and organizations that feed our community and our world in a way that is consistent with spiritual law. Number 3 is pray. We in Unity endorse something, a kind of prayer that we call affirmative prayer. But any kind of prayer that builds an awareness that God is a very real part of our lives, I think, is valuable. It's strengthening the awareness that there is an invisible yet powerful reality of Spirit that is available to us, responding to us, with which we are one. Number 4 was become receptive. And I think about this as really being open and willing. Sometimes we get caught up in resistance to what is coming into our lives, pushing back in a way. And while I feel it's fine, in fact, I endorse the idea of being specific about what it is that of an intention that you'd like to have in your life. It's also true that what comes into our life isn't always something that we planned, and it isn't always something that's very welcome. But it is helpful if we can accept what is in our life and perhaps figure that it's in our lives for a reason that may have to do with our soul development. But whatever the reason, it is here. And as we can accept it, then we are not connecting with it energetically, and that allows it to just move on through our life easily with a minimum of pain and difficulty. Now, I did think there's also some other kind of self-defeating thought patterns that we might want to mention here. One is you may be frustrating the flow if A, you feel that prosperity is somehow a bad thing. If you don't feel okay about abundance, then you may subconsciously be keeping it at a distance. Secondly, if we resent the abundant demonstration in other people's lives, that can also interfere with the flow. Or if we have a basic belief that we don't deserve something good in our lives, any one of these can restrict our experience of abundance. Number 5, hanging in there? Number 5 is develop intention. living more abundantly involves focusing on what we want. I think too often we get caught up in focusing our attention on what it is that we don't want, or something that is in our life that we don't want. We find ourselves dwelling on the problem instead of on the solution and its source. The truth is that what we focus on in our lives tends to expand. So we want to focus on that which we want to attract. If you want to open up the creative flow, then you can be specific, but also affirm this or something greater. Because, I know there's a case to be made for saying, well, you don't want to be too specific in what you're asking for. Just let the universe decide for you. But from my perspective, sometimes we need to be a little specific. I can think back to a point in my life when I had gone to ministerial school. I had graduated. I thought I was going to this church that I'd done a guest speaking at there several times, but that at the last minute, it all fell through. And I had no job. I went back to Chicago and went back to work at my old job, and I had no place to go do ministry. This went on for months. And finally, Pam and I got together to pray about this, and it dawned on us that maybe the universe needed to hear from us, what it is that we wanted, and maybe the universe was waiting to hear. And so basically, we came up with a little spiritual formula. We said, we knew of a few places that were looking for, that had positions open. And so we said, okay, Spirit, we'd like to go to place A or place B, or C is a place that we've never heard of and we don't know anything about, but it's a perfect place for us. Well, that was our prayer, and within days we got a call from place C, which happened to be over in Prescott, Arizona. I'd never been to Arizona in my life, but it turned out to be just the right place. And I think oftentimes if the universe needs to hear something, basically what the universe is waiting for is us to make up our mind. And once we've made up our mind, then the universe can respond. And it's always helpful though, I think, to add this or something greater. Thank you for this or something greater. Number 6, stay in the moment. It helps us if, to the best of our ability, we can stay in the moment. We don't want to get too caught up in worries about the future or guilt or misgivings about the past. Doing that kind of pulls the plug on our connection with the good that is here and now. And the truth is that the presence of God is in the present. It's always in the present, not in the past or in the future. Number 7, affirm. And I think it's pretty easy to forget just how powerful speaking aloud can be in building the consciousness that we desire and redirecting our thinking in a healthier and more constructive direction. Charles Fillmore was a big advocate of affirmation. Of course, he also was an advocate of denials. Denial was basically a saying that this thought no longer has power to influence my life. And the affirmation is, this is the truth that I'm embracing. I don't know if any of you would have taken Stretton Smith's prosperity classes. Jeanette remembers these, they go way back. But one of the things I took that class several times because I led it. And one of the things was he had us affirm for several weeks, 100 times a day, I am prosperous. 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 I had to use my fingers because there's no other way to keep track of 100, unless I wrote it down on a piece of paper. And it sounds kind of absurd, but hey, it seemed to work. And that affirmation that we affirmed earlier today, I think is well, I made it up, but I think it's a great one. God is my unlimited source of good. I live an abundant life. Together, God is my unlimited source of good. I live an abundant life, and so it is. Well, we're almost there. Number 8, embrace self-worth. It's difficult to build an experience, an abundant experience, if we feel that we don't deserve it. And so, as I mentioned earlier, if we hold this idea on a subconscious level, maybe because this is something that we were told when we were growing up, we were little kids, and somehow it's kind of stuck in our consciousness on a subconscious level. Maybe it's something that we've unwittingly kind of reaffirmed in our life over time. See, our subconscious is a faithful servant that will do as instructed. And if we've instructed our subconscious that we don't deserve something good to take place in our lives, it will work to keep it at a distance from us. It's just doing what it's been told. So if you feel like there is something there, then I think it's worth taking a deeper look at that. I do think that having a negative attitude towards ourselves is a major cause of unhappiness in life. So it may take some significant inner work to address this, but I think it's important enough to do so. And Unity and New Thought offer lots of opportunities for ways to address this. And number 9 is to forgive. Forgiving others and forgiving ourselves really are two ends of the same concept. If we are holding on to a lack of forgiveness or a resentment, it's a surefire way to drag down our vibration and block the flow of greater good in our lives. When you think about it, holding a resentment is the opposite of a blessing on somebody. It's more like a curse. And if we're holding on to that for somebody else, it has a way of affecting our own life experience. And real forgiveness, I don't know that we've talked about that here, but real forgiveness, I feel, can be thought of as granting someone safe passage through your mind. Let me just say that one more time, because I think it's worth hearing. Forgiveness is the process of granting someone safe passage through your mind. Forgiveness is a recommendation that is made in virtually every religion throughout the world, and there's a very good reason why it is the case. So perhaps there's something that you heard in that list that you feel is something that was worth paying attention to in your life, to raise your awareness into that consciousness that indeed you are blessed. The universe is available to supply that which you need, not only in this very moment, but in days ahead. You can live confidently going forward, knowing that God is in charge and you are living an abundant life. Let's take this into prayer here for a moment. I invite you to take a breath and release it. And again, let's breathe. And let it go. As we allow the flow of that life-sustaining oxygen to move through our systems. We breathe in. We breathe out. The truth is that we are one with Spirit. And I invite you to hear these words as your own. I am Spirit. I am one with Spirit. I am one with light and love. I take this moment to just let go, release any concerns about my physical being, the world around me. I let it all just slip away for a moment. As I affirm this truth, I am one with Spirit. I am one with the light. I am one with the love of Spirit. Not only in this moment, but in every moment. Wherever I go, wherever I am, whatever seems to be showing up in the world around me, this is the truth. I am one with Spirit. And in that oneness, I am open to the flow of a greater good through me, the flow of life and love, an abundance of all that is good. I am one with the Spirit. God, it is with a heart filled with love and gratitude that I say, thank you, God. Thank you, God. Amen.